Hey, good evening. Looks like we got a couple of people in here already. You guys beat me to the punch tonight. So hopefully everybody is doing well. Give me just a moment to get all set up here and we'll get going. And just in case this is your first time in here, I will tell you that just like I always say, this is not, there's nothing planned for this broadcast. I don't have a topic. Let's adjust that camera a little bit, cutting off the top of my head, aren't we? There we go. Try that again. So I don't have anything planned for the topic tonight. I never do. It's just pretty much an Ask Me Anything session. You guys ask your questions. I do my best to get them answered, and I try to answer all of the comments that come in. The only rules I keep is, just keep it family friendly, be polite, be nice to people. That's all I ask. And let's jump in here and get some questions answered, or say hello to some people anyway. We got Angel B. Dog, Joanne Cardelis, Austin Hicks, Samuel and Scarlett Monty saying hi, Xbox. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but maybe you're joining on your Xbox. Well, either way, we're glad to have you here. William Caruso, Boris, Armed American, good evening to you. Walt Lars from Southern California, where it's hailing there now, huh? We got a little bit of a break from the weather. It was actually pretty nice today. I think it was like almost 50 degrees. It was pretty nice out. Samuel and Scarlett Monty says, love your videos. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. John Sweeten from Bonnie, Illinois. Rhonda Snare is here. Hello to you. Antonio Garcia. Hey, we got a question here from Antonio. Says, hey, Chris, how many litters can a rabbit have before wearing out? Well, that depends on the rabbit, of course. There's no set standard on that. And I don't know that I can give you the number of litters, but I would say most rabbits, probably 2 to 3 years is about the most you're going to get out of them for breeding. Females anyway. Males can go a little bit longer, probably 5 or 6 years at the most. But females, you're looking at probably about 2 to 3 years before they're pretty much done with their breeding cycle at that point. Hopefully that answers that for you. Hello to you, Charles. Angel says, have you ever had problems with parasites in your rabbit or quail? I have not. Never had a problem with them. And I guess I'm pretty lucky with that. I mean, if you count ear mites, I get ear mites in the rabbits occasionally, but that's pretty easy to address. I don't really consider that a big issue at all. But no, other than that, I've never had any kind of parasite problems with any of my rabbit or my quail. I don't do any kind of preventative worming or any of those kinds of things, and never been a problem for me. All right, Hunter says, new to your live chats, what do you typically go over? Well, Hunter, again, this is just pretty much a session I let the chat drive it. So I do my best to answer all the questions that come into the chat. So if you have a question, if you have a comment, you want to leave that, I do my best to try to respond to all of those. I will tell you guys, like I usually say, there's a little bit of a delay from the time I say something to the time that it actually gets through. So if you have asked a question, you didn't get it answered, and just kind of, you might look at where I'm at in the comments section. I may get to you eventually, or if I've passed you, then go ahead and ask it again. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with all the chats that are coming in. All right, let's see. Eugene from Windham, Connecticut is here. Jose, hey, says, hey, I am expecting to have adult quail next week. Should I increase their feed and water? Okay, wait. I'm expecting to have adult quail next week. Should I increase their feed and water? I'm not sure what you're asking me there, Jose. If you mean your quail are growing and you're wondering if you should increase feed and water, well, I mean, yeah, give them as much food as they'll eat and as much water as they'll eat. Try not to let your feeders go empty with your quail, because they can get pretty aggressive if they don't have food. It's like they just panic all of a sudden if their feeders are empty, and then they start turning on each other pretty quick. So it's always best to keep the feeder full. They won't overeat. You don't have to worry about that. And give them as much water as they can. I mean, always keep the water full too. That's my best advice. Hopefully that answers that question for you. Hello, is that Sierra Flame? I think it is. Ultimate Outdoor Boys says, so I hatched bob whites this week and had one that hatched and it had a rotten foot. The skin was coming off and the bone was black. Do you know what that was? Boy, that's a hard one. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. So no, I don't know that I can answer that for you. My guess would be that some kind of infection, of course, but what caused it, I couldn't tell you exactly, unless maybe, if it was really slow to hatch, that could have been part of the problem. But I mean, it's some kind of bacterial infection. That's the best that I could guess on that. I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer. All right, Austin says, when will your lights be out, Chris? Well, Boy, I'm really hoping to get that going within the next week or 2 weeks. I'll have the Kickstarter. I know I keep saying that. It's just life's getting in the way, and it's getting hard to find the time. I got to shoot a video for it. I got to, a couple of things I got to get done with that. But hopefully I'll have that on the Kickstarter out in the next week to 2 weeks. If you haven't signed up, go ahead and do that. I haven't sent out a lot of emails because there's just not a lot to update you guys on, and I don't want to spam you. I don't want to, just send you all kinds of email all the time. But I will make sure that I send an email out before it launches, give you an update, let you know when to plan to be there, because there will be a limited number of spots where you can get a little bit of an early bird discount, a little bit of a reduced rate on it. All right. Kinfolk Farm of Georgia says, hey, Chris, welcome back. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Samuel and Scarlett says, how many chickens do you have if you have chickens? I don't have any chickens. I have quail. How many quail do I have right now? 15 or so probably, but I don't have any chickens. All right, William says, ended up with few too many males on my last batch. Any ideas on recipes? You can do lots of things with quail. Something I've really enjoyed with them lately is cut the breast off the bone, so you end up with 2 little pieces, and you can put, I like to put blue cheese on it, and then wrap it with some bacon, brush it with some like buffalo wing sauce, and then bake that until the bacon's done. That's pretty good. You can do the same thing, put jalapeno and cream cheese on it, wrap it with bacon. You can, cut it up and cook it like you would chicken, for like chicken quesadillas, that kind of thing. That's pretty good. Just sprinkle it with some taco seasoning, cook it in the skillet till it's done, and then, cut it in some smaller pieces, put it on some tortillas with some cheese and whatever, and, grill it like you would a quesadilla, basically. That's pretty good. That's a couple that come to mind right offhand. Maybe that'll give you some ideas to go with. All right. Excuse me. Ramiro Rodriguez says, my quails hatched today, and I've watched all your videos. How to improve your hatch video. I got 13 out of 20 eggs, and this is my first time. That's not too bad. 13 out of 20 is pretty good. So congratulations on your first hatch, and congratulations on a good hatch. It'll probably only get better from here. Keep at it. Rhonda says, I'm really shocked my rabbit had her babies on February 4th. First litter, whoa, and had 10. Comments just jumped on me. I had a hard time following it. Let's see. First litter had 10 and still are doing amazing. She's a New Zealand meat rabbit, all white, and none of the babies are white. Well, she's probably a mixed breed. Either that or, the rabbit you bred her with was mixed. And sometimes that'll happen. You can have, I bred a, let's see, a silver fox. Was that the silver fox I bred? No. It was a New Zealand white with a New Zealand red, I believe, or a California maybe with a New Zealand red, and got all these little black baby bunnies. I don't know where the black comes from in there, but it happens sometimes. So, where are we at here? Ken Folks says, how's the new light coming? Well, I think I gave an update on that just now. It's getting there. I'm getting ready to launch the Kickstarter. Hopefully I can meet the funding goal, get the order placed, get it out to everybody. That's my hope anyway at this point. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully have that launched in the next week or 2. All right, Walt says, too many male chicks might be an incubator temp problem. Could be too high or too low. Well, that's true. It depends on how many hatch, though. I mean, the temperature doesn't necessarily dictate the genetics or the gender of the bird that's going to hatch, but it can affect whether you're, if you have a bunch of eggs that don't hatch, those may have been your hens if your incubator temperature is a little bit high. If your incubator temperature is just a little bit low, it could be the opposite, where you get more hens than you do roosters. But again, it doesn't affect the gender of them. It just affects the hatchability of those genders, if that kind of makes sense. All right, Tracy, how often can I feed my quail mealworms? Probably as often as you want. I mean, don't make that their primary diet, but you can give them a handful a day. I mean, no problems. You can feed them every day if you want to. As long as they'll eat them, no problem at all. All right. Sarah says, I just got done hatching chicken eggs today. I did very well with 26 of 30 eggs. Hatched, I used a DIY incubator. Very nice, 26 of 30. Very good hatch rate with chickens and on a do-it-yourself incubator. So congratulations, well done. All right, Denver says, let me grab a drink here real quick. All right, looks like Denver is sad. Says, hi all, I'm sad because my California doe died unexpectedly 2 days ago. Don't have any clue as to why. She was about 4 years old and gave me many nice rabbits. I'm sorry to hear that, Denver. It's always a little bit sad whenever you have, especially like your favorite doe, that just suddenly dies. That happens from time to time. Sometimes you just never know. I mean, you could probably take her to a vet. They could probably end up figuring out what it was that caused it, but I don't know that it's worth it, honestly. I've had that kind of thing happen too, where I just come up and just all of a sudden rabbit's dead for no reason whatsoever that I can figure out. But that's just part of raising animals. Sometimes those things happen, and most of the time you never really know why. Probably some kind of a disease or illness of some kind. But what it was, who knows? All right, Angel says, talking about feeding quail, I'll be I need to go feed, I'll be back. I need to go feed mine. I always feed mine in the mornings, but actually the feeder I've got right now is pretty good sized Tupperware style container with the holes cut in the side. And it lasts them days. I don't have to feed every day, but that's pretty nice actually. It's pretty convenient. All right, Mazius Martin. And Owen Miller says hi. Hello to you, Owen. Mazius says, I keep my 2 bunnies interior of my house. They already learned how to go do pee, but poop all over. How can I teach them? Yeah, you're asking the wrong person. My rabbits all stay in cages outside. I don't know really the first thing about training a rabbit to use a litter box, or I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't answer that question for you. A lot of rabbits will pick a spot where they prefer, like especially if you have them like a caged area. They will pick a spot that they prefer to use as the restroom. And if you put a litter box right there, they might go in that on a regular basis. And then you can kind of expand their area a little bit and just keep the litter box handy. They may just go back to that. But again, I don't know. I've never tried to litter box train a rabbit. All right, Walt says mealworms are high in protein, so it won't make a complete diet. Are very high in protein, so it won't make a complete diet. Yep, I would say, again, don't make it their main diet, but feeding as treats as often as you want to is fine. All right, Mark Khalil, I always have a hard time with your name, not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Says, finally, my New Zealand mixed rabbits had babies, around 6 to 8 babies. I'm super nervous to pull them out to count. I just check if they are all alive every day or so. You don't need to be nervous about that. You can get in there and I handle all my baby rabbits like pretty much the day they're born. Get in there, check them all, make sure they're all doing okay. You don't want to get them out and play with them for like hours on end, but yeah, you can get them out and count them and check them, make sure everybody's doing okay, put them back in. You're not going to have to worry about it. That whole idea of mothers abandoning their babies, it's a myth. It doesn't happen. If it does, sometimes mother rabbits will abandon their babies, but it has nothing to do with whether you touched them, whether they smell like you or any of that kind of stuff. It's just bad mothering instincts, and they're going to do it regardless of whether you touch them or not. So it's nothing for you to worry about. Got a little bit of a hoarse throat tonight. Seems like that always happens on Thursday evenings when I'm getting ready to get on a live broadcast. All right, where are we at here? Joanne Cordelos, I think that is how that is. Okay, there we go. Says, my rabbit had 3 babies and she ate them. Oh man, that's terrible. I hate that. Sometimes that will happen from time to time. It's very, very rare for a rabbit to eat their own babies. But just like any other animal out there, rabbits aren't really rodents, but I would say any other rodent out there, it is something that does happen, and it does tend to happen when they feel threatened. Like they feel like there's some kind of threat, not necessarily to the babies themselves, but to them. Predators coming around, something like that, they'll turn and eat them. And sometimes you just have a rabbit that just does that. Again, it's just poor mothering instincts. If it's the first time she had babies, I would try her again. The fact that she only had 3 makes me think that she may not be a very good mother. It may be that she didn't have enough milk production to feed them. So instead of just letting them die, she went ahead and just ate them. It's a kind of a survival instinct in them, I think, to regain that nourishment that they lost in giving birth to them instead of letting them go to waste. That's very simplistic, but I think that may be what causes that kind of thing. I would give her another try if that's your first time. See if she does better the second time. If she does the same thing the second time, then I would say it's time to look for a new mother rabbit. That's just my best advice on that. All right, Ramiro says, some of my eggs hatched yesterday and some today. Do I take them all out at the same time? Yeah, do it. Yeah, wait till they're all dry and fluffy. I always give them, if they're all hatched, then just wait till they're dry and fluffy and take them out. If there's still eggs in there that haven't hatched, I would wait at least 24, more like 48 hours from the time the first one hatched, and then go ahead and just move them all out as quick as you can. Try not to keep the incubator open too long. Close it back up. Let it go for another couple of days because you can probably get a couple more out of there. All right, Denver says, got some Peking ducks hatching as we speak. Very nice. I've often thought about getting ducks, but I just haven't done that. All right. Oh, I missed a comment from Sierra. Sierra Flame says, I bought this pregnant rabbit last week, and she had babies today. I'm going to give her a few more days. I mess with them before I mess with them, since she's a new rabbit. Well, again, you shouldn't have to worry about it. You can get in there and mess with them. Shouldn't be a problem at all. But if you want to give them a couple days, go ahead. No problem with that either. The thing I would caution you about, though, with this, I'm going to wait a couple of days. It's always get in there and check and just make sure they're all alive. Make sure that one didn't die. It's not uncommon, especially if it's a first-time mom, or especially if they had a really big litter, for them to lose one or two, and you don't want that sitting in the nest box with the other babies. You want to get it out of there, get it away from them. So, I mean, it can cause disease issues. It can draw predators. I mean, all kinds of problems with that. So it's best to get in there and check just to make sure they're all still alive, they're all squirming, and, if nothing else, that's the bare minimum I would do. All right, Rhonda says, I'm having a hard time telling if my quail are male or female. I did rewatch your video, but I'm still confused. Well, if you're trying to vent sex them, make sure they're sexually mature first, and they're in the breeding season. If you don't have lights on them, if you don't hear your roosters crowing, they're not going to produce any foam. So make sure that you've got that done. And if if all else fails and they're crowing, I mean, just stand around and watch. Eventually, one of them will crow, and you go, oh, that's a rooster, and you can band him or put some kind of mark on him or something like that. But yeah, if you're planning on vent sexing them, if you can't just look at them and tell if they're not standard browns, or something like that, where you can, spotted chest means a female, or red chest means a male. If they're like a white or, something like that, you have to vent sex them, but they have to be in the breeding season in order to be doing that. So you have to add some light, 14 hours a day, get your roosters crowing, your females laying eggs, and then you should be able to vent sex them pretty easily at that point. All right. Darwin says, one of my quail laid an egg that looks just like a chicken egg, besides the size, of course. Is that normal? It's not abnormal, especially when they first start laying eggs, or they first, they've stopped for a while and then they start back up again. You get a lot of really strange little tiny eggs, great big eggs, oblong eggs, weird shape. I mean, you get all that kind of stuff. It just happens from time to time. It's nothing to worry about. All right, April says, you are great. How is the wife? My wife is doing very well, thank you. She's got, let's see, she had treatment today. She's got treatment tomorrow, her radiation treatment tomorrow. And then she's got 3 more, I think, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. And then she's done, which will be nice. She's getting pretty worn out, not from the treatment itself necessarily, but the problem she has right now is that she's got to go in for treatment every day, this radiation treatment. So she's got to get up in the morning, get my stepson to school. So she's up at 6:30 in the morning to get him ready for school, get him to school, and then and then she goes in for treatment, and then she gets done with treatment, and then she has to go to work. And because she's having to do treatment every day, she has to work the late shift every day. So she's working until 9:30. She's not getting home until 10 o'clock at night. So it makes for a pretty busy day. She's getting pretty worn out. But a couple more days of that, and then she's done, and she'll get a little bit of a break, hopefully. All right. Darwin says, one of my quail laid an egg. Oh, I already answered that, didn't I? Ronnie says, hello from Kansas. How's your wife doing? Still praying for you guys. Thank you so much for the prayers. Answered the question about my wife already, but I appreciate you guys asking and keeping track of that. Steve says, wear more crazy t-shirts. I need to buy some new t-shirts. I only have a few. My clothes start to wear out, and I just don't replace them nearly as fast. But yeah, I'll see what I can do to get some pretty good shirts for the next couple of videos, maybe. Well, it probably won't be that quick, but who knows? We'll get some in there. All right, Katie says, hi, Chris. I have a few 8-week-old quail that are laying oddball eggs. One lays really long, skinny eggs. But I think we just talked about this, too. We've gotten 4 so far, and the last was 3/4 of an inch by 2 inches long. Will she always lay eggs like that? No, probably not. I mean, maybe, but the fact that it's an 8-week-old quail means it just started laying, kind of like I was talking about a little bit ago. It's pretty common when they first start laying and when they first start relaying after they've stopped for a little while. It's a pretty common thing. Don't worry about it. They'll usually get out of that and they'll start laying regular eggs pretty soon. Hopefully that answers that for you. All right, Catherine says, I think answering somebody else maybe. Says, I'm Amazia, I don't know what that is. If you keep the food and water above the litter box. Oh, there we go, talking about litter training the rabbit. I think that was an answer. So if you keep the food and water above the litter box, that helps with litter training. Otherwise, keep them confined to a small area for a while. Could take months to fully litter train. Thank you for the answer for that. Appreciate that. And hello to you, by the way. Charles says, once quail start laying, is there a waiting period before incubating? or can the first egg be used? It's probably best to wait a couple of weeks. About 2 weeks is what I generally do. You might be able to get away with laying the first couple of eggs, but again, like I said, those are kind of like practice eggs. That's what I think of them as. It takes a little while for them to kind of start laying regular eggs and not, not the weird oddball ones. I don't think most of those would incubate very well anyway. Plus, chances are if they just started laying, then they're just starting to breed. So they may not even be fertile at that point. I always give them about 2 weeks to kind of smooth out and get everything, and then I start collecting eggs for incubating. All right, God's Outdoor Disciples. Hello from Illinois. Supposed to get quail this weekend. Can I use layer crumble? It's 22% protein. It's all I can find locally. You can use layer crumble. It's probably not the absolute best feed for them. I would try to find something else. You might check with your feed stores in the area, see if they can order something in. They may not carry it on a regular basis, but they may be able to order it and get it as part of their regular shipment. I've done that before with feed stores. Usually they're pretty willing to help as long as the place they order from carries it. Also, you might look for a turkey starter. It's a really good substitute to a game bird starter, and it's usually a higher protein. So, look for those couple things. Hopefully that helps. All right. Rhonda says, I'm hoping to get 4 dozen quail eggs tomorrow. Well, good luck with your hatch. I hope they work out well. Walt's saying the same thing I did. Give it a couple of weeks of laying before incubating the eggs. That's my advice, too. All right. D. Escobar says, hi, Chris. Want to start raising quail and getting as much info from your videos as possible. Is it better to raise quail in the ground or caged? Awesome videos, by the way. It just depends. It's really whatever you want to do with them. If you want to raise them on the ground, raise them on the ground. If you want to raise them in a cage, raise them in a cage. I will say, let me grab a drink again. There are a couple of things that I think are beneficial about raising them in an above ground cage. It is a little bit less accessible to predators, and quail are prey for everything. So, it is a little bit less accessible, so it will kind of keep that down a little bit. But then again, that may not be a big issue where you live. I don't know what I don't know what your area is like. So you may not have a lot of predator problems, or you may have, ways to deal with that, so it may not be a big issue. There is also a slightly higher risk of parasites and things like that if you have them in contact with the ground. But again, that just depends on your area. How big of a population of parasites do you have, so to speak? Lots of people raise them on the ground, never have a problem. If you want to do it, go for it, do it. I don't know that there's one way. I don't know that you can say it's any better. I think quail probably, well, maybe anyway. They seem to be pretty content in the cages that I have them in. But I do think that they would, like a great big aviary area where they could just roam around a little bit more, go after bugs. I think they'd enjoy that. So, there's a trade-off there, and, it's just whatever you want to do. All right. Brian says, can humidity be too high in lockdown? Yeah, it can. You really don't want it over about 85%. It can cause the chicks to drown as they start to pip the egg, the shell. If the humidity is too high, it can cause them to drown, basically suffocate. So yeah, it can be too high. All right. Catherine says, Catherine Knutson, by small area, I mean the cage, should be just big enough to house the litter box, and they can lay right beside it outside that box. Yep, good suggestion. Steve says, I see that crossbow waiting for hunting season. Yeah, it's back here behind me. It's well, it's just I haven't figured out where to store it just yet. So I've sighted it in. I shot it a couple of times. I just haven't got it put away anywhere yet. But yeah, it's gonna be a little while. It's gonna be at least September before I can go out hunting with it. But yeah, I'm getting anxious. That extends my. I've never been a bow hunter. I've got a bow, but it's it's over in the other corner here. But it's a very old bow. It was my father's from probably the 70s. And I never shot it enough to get good at it, never practiced enough, never really learned how to shoot a bow very well. I've thought about picking one up because, the newer bows are a lot different than the old bows, but just haven't ever done it. So now that I've got a crossbow, it's like easier entry into bow hunting. It's legal in Missouri to hunt during bow hunting season with a crossbow. And man, that thing's accurate. I mean, 50 yards and just hitting the bullseye. So it's, I'm pretty excited for hunting season. It gives me a lot longer season. I can start hunting in September, and I can hunt all the way through like January. Whereas being a rifle hunter, you only have basically 11 days of the year. That's it. So 2 weekends more or less, because I work a job. I can't can't hunt during the week. All right. Walt says 22% chicken. Oh yeah, 22% chicken crumble is okay, but higher CP is better, so go out and get some higher percent. Well, yeah, higher percent protein is better. But yeah, you can get away with 22% for a little while. Right, Nadine says, hi, I'm in New Mexico and I want to get quail native to the area. Where would I go to get them? I don't know for sure. Keep in mind that if you are getting quail that are native to the area, you're probably going to need some kind of permit to raise them. It's not hard to get. Just talk to your conservation department. They should be able to help you with, I think it's probably your conservation department. It is in Missouri anyway. And usually there's a little bit of a fee, but it's not much, like $15 maybe for a year or something like that usually. I don't know about New Mexico. I've never lived there. I'm not sure exactly what quail would be native to your area. I would think bobwhites would be, and probably, I just don't know. You're probably going to have to just look for that. I don't know who exactly raises those either. I know we've got a viewer that does raise some mountain quail, and I can't remember, is it mountain quail and Gamble's quail, or maybe it's, I don't remember. There's a couple of different quail that he raises, so he may be somebody to talk to about that. Is it Keith, I think is his name? Keith's Quail, I think is what it is. You can look him up. He's got a Facebook page for it. You might also check, I don't know if Kansas City Quail Farms carries any native birds or not, but you can check with them. That's who I usually recommend for ordering eggs from, but I don't know if they carry any or not. So those would be a couple of places I would check. All right. Mark says, I'm still having an issue with the purebred New Zealand. She will never lift and often fights with the buck. I'm thinking about holding her down next time. Can I use a mild sedative to mellow her out? I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I'm afraid to give my rabbits a sedative. I'm not sure how it would affect them, and I just don't know that that's a great idea. I think what I would do if she's that aggressive, she's fighting, she never would look. I think I'd just look for a new rabbit. That'd be the easiest fix for me. But sorry to hear you having all those problems. You can force breed, but I don't know. If you have to go through that every time, it's a lot of work. Again, I would just look for a new rabbit if it was me. All right, Sarah says, I finally got me some more quail and put them outside last week. They should start laying eggs next week. Well, congratulations on your new birds. Hope you get some eggs out of them real soon. Oh, Mark says, don't worry about my last name, Chris. Thanks, I appreciate that because I'm terrible with pronouncing people's names. All right, Walt says, if you have game bird quail, you will probably need a fish and game department permit. Check online for the breeders you want. Ask the DFG about names of local breeders. Hey, that's a good suggestion. They might even be able to tell you. I don't know how your fish and game or conservation department is in your area, but in Missouri, our conservation department is fantastic. They're super willing to help you out if you have any questions about hunting seasons or where to hunt or any of those kinds of things. They'll give you great tips for all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure if I was going to raise something like that, I mean, they give out. Like if I had an armadillo problem, I was going to trap the armadillo because he was tearing up the neighbor's yard. The neighbor really didn't like it. Doesn't bother me too much. He can dig through my yard and eat all the grubs he wants. But he was bothering the neighbor's yard. He was getting in his flower beds and stuff. So I was going to trap him and relocate him. And the conservation department gives us free traps. They'll loan them out, let you use them, tell you where to take him to relocate him, and all that. They're just super helpful, friendly people. All right. John wants to know how my wife is doing. She's doing well. I gave a little bit of an update about that a little bit earlier. Almost done with her radiation treatment. All in all, she's doing very, very well. Thank you for asking. All right, Mason says, I'm 12 years old and I have rabbits, quail, and chickens. That's a handful. Mason, I think you were in here before. I think we talked before. I think I remember that. So it's good to see somebody getting into growing their own food as a younger kid. My 12-year-old stepson doesn't really have any interest in growing own food, dealing with the rabbits or the quail, but hey, to each their own. Everybody's got different interests. Hello to you, Todd from Louisiana. Nadine says, thank you to Walt. Yeah, Walt's always super helpful. Appreciate that. Nadine says, I already answered that. 2.5 acres says, hi, everyone. Hello to you. Denver says, I have got my cold-resistant plants going. They're about 4 inches tall. Lettuce, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, onions, broccoli. Did you start any of these? I didn't start any of these this year. I have a hard time with, I've got cabbage growing under the low tunnels. It went all winter long. It's fine. I didn't start any onions. I do have garlic growing already out there right now. I will start some lettuce, but it's a little bit early for me. Lettuce grows so fast that I don't like to start it before, we've got a good, let's see, what is this, the last week of February? So we've got, all the way through March and into probably mid-April before our last frost date. So, I mean, we're looking a month and a half before the last frost date. And it's just a little bit early for me to get that stuff going. But we'll be starting soon with probably some lettuce, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli. I've always had a hard time because it seems like we go from freeze to summer hot in like no time. So it's hard to keep that stuff going for me, but I may give it another shot at some point. I think something bit me. I got a little spot on my arm if you guys keep seeing me digging at it here. I'll be all right though. All right. 2.5 acres says the coop called me and said their ducks are in, but I can't right now. I'm bottle feeding a baby calf. We have a new puppy on our homestead. Sheep, quail, and ducks will be our next addition. Wow, sounds like you've got quite the handful there. All right. Walt's got a good saying here. Never heard that one, Walt. Walt says, talking about, I guess, sexing quail, just remember, chicks dig redheads. That'll help you to remember how to sex the quail appropriately. Brittany says, Chris, in desperate need of some advice, just bought an incubator with an egg turner. Will jumbo, Pharaoh, Coturnix eggs work without buying the different quail trays? Yeah, any of the quail eggs will work without buying the different quail trays. I like the quail trays. They work better, and you can fit a lot more eggs in your incubator that way. But if you've got the chicken egg turners, they work just fine. I've used them before, no problems whatsoever. I know some people have talked about having the eggs fall out of them. I never had that problem. It worked just fine for me. Regular size quail eggs or jumbos, either way. All right, Rinchin448 says, hello, Chris. It's Megan from Webb. Hey, I know who you are. Says, know if chickens can be raised with quail. Well, they can probably be raised with quail, but it's not a good idea. First of all, chickens are pretty aggressive, and they tend to want to eat anything that's smaller than them. So I don't think that's a good idea to keep them together in close proximity for that reason. Also, chickens do carry some diseases. Not all chickens will carry them, but they can be carriers of diseases that will negatively affect your quail. Your quail, the chicken can carry it and never show any symptoms, but the quail can be affected by it. So it's really best to keep them separated. All right, 2.5 acres says, we'll be praying for her, talking about my wife. Thank you so much for the prayers. I appreciate that. Brittany, thanks, Walt. It's a Farm Innovations. Oh, Walt is saying it depends on what type of turner you've got as to whether it will work with the quail eggs. All right, Chicken Nuggets says, I made it. Well, I'm glad to see you here. Todd Lejeune says, are they fertile? I'm not sure what we're talking about. All right. 2.5 acres again says, I have a chicken incubator. Can I put a piece of styrofoam in there where the eggs sit so the eggs won't fall through? I'm not sure. I'm assuming you could. Make sure it doesn't block up any vent holes or anything like that. I'm not sure what kind of incubator you have. I'm trying to envision the quail eggs falling through. It must be a grate that has pretty big holes in it. I don't see why that wouldn't work. You might even try, well, that's probably your best bet, honestly. Oh, and Walt's got a good suggestion. He says you could add foam tape to egg cups to reduce the inside of the turner cup. That's a good idea. Necro Kitty, that's a weird name, but Necro Kitty says, any tips on upping the omega-3 fatty acids in quail meat and eggs? Honestly, I don't. I don't know the best bet on that. I'm not a nutritionist, and I don't have those expertise. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one for you. I don't really, I like to make sure that I grow my own food. I like the nutritional value and all those kinds of things, but I don't really get into it in that level of how much omega-3 fatty acids does it have, and I just eat what I want to eat and try to make sure it's as least processed as possible. All right. Yep, Walt's always got great ideas, Brittany. Always great to have Walt in here. Mark Benton says, hi, Chris, I'm having trouble keeping the humidity under 60%. That could be a little bit of a problem. Don't stress about it too much. 60%'s fine. Not only that, but you're probably not getting a real accurate humidity reading. The only real way you can get an accurate humidity reading is with relative humidity, which requires, you have to have an incubator a thermometer in the water, take a reading of the air temperature, do some math. That'll tell you what the actual humidity is. So 60% is fine. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it a bit. All right, Monica says, I have quails, which I think are A&Ms, white. How to recognize them? Mine weigh 480 grams or 16 to 17 ounces. That's pretty good size. Greetings from Poland. Well, thanks for coming to the live broadcast. Appreciate that. If you're wondering how you can tell them apart, like, that's, Sam and that's George, it's going to be tricky with all white birds without banding them, adding something to them that, little pigeon bands or something like that around their legs so you can look at the bands and see the colors. My doorbell, which is my dog, is going off. Max, come here. Come on. I think it's a false alarm. I think he's just barking at a passing car or something. All right. What was I talking about? Oh, he's still going. I don't know. We'll see. If somebody breaks into the house, then we'll know he was sounding the right alarm. All right. So A&M's, white birds. Oh, yeah. How do you recognize them? Yeah. That's really the only way I know how to. There's not really any identifying marks on them to be able to tell them apart unless, they get aggressive and they peck one of the one's eyes out. Then you'd be able to pick that bird out. That's pretty gruesome. But I don't know any other way, honestly. All right. Chicken Nugget says, my first chicks hatched a week and a half ago, and their names are Bubble. My little brother named her that. Kiki, Meringue. Is that Meringue? I guess it is. And Penguin. Me and my family love them to pieces. Very nice. Congratulations on your new birds. And glad that you had a successful hatch. All right, Christian says, can I use sand as bedding in a solid bottom cage? Yes, you can. I put sand boxes in mine. It's the part of the cage that is a solid bottom, and I cover it with sand. Works great. You have to clean it out occasionally, but it works pretty well. Yeah, you can absolutely use it. Yeah, Walt, I agree. Walt says an above-ground cage is easier on you doing chores. I agree. I think it is too. But again, nothing wrong with if you had a really large outdoor cage, ground cage, it would be pretty easy too. You wouldn't really have to do any cleanup because they would have enough room to move around, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. And Walt says, 90-pound puppy just crawled in my lap. Well, my dog is not 90 pounds, but he likes to crawl in my lap too. Brian says, we raise our eating quail on the ground, and so far no problems. We move them to new ground every day, just like our chickens. Yeah, that would be a good way to do it. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't if that's what you want to do. The Grateful Sunites, I think that is, just wanted to pop in and say thank you for your incubator videos. We bought our first one, and we'll have eggs going in this weekend. Well, good luck with that. I hope it works out well. I'm glad that you found my videos helpful, and I'm sure you're going to do just great. The Right Farm says, what do you hunt? Well, I hunt deer. I hunt turkey. I'm not a very successful turkey hunter, but I'm learning. I hunt squirrel. That's usually about all I hunt on a regular basis. Grateful Sonite says, we're in Missouri too. Hey, small world, huh? Depending on what part of Missouri, you may not be very far from me. The Right Farm says, do you hunt deer and pigs or just deer? Just deer. I have shot pigs before because we have a little bit of a wild hog problem that's starting to get worse. And I have shot them while I'm out deer hunting. The Conservation Department used to say, shoot them on sight, and they encourage you. It was open season all year long. Now they're telling us not to shoot them. They think that it discourages them, makes it harder to concentrate them for their trapping methods and stuff. But I don't know if that's true or not. But no, I don't actively hunt hogs. Chicken Nugget says, I'm going to sell the next batch of chicks that are going to hatch in March. How much should I sell them for? Depends on how much they go for in your area. If you're talking about chickens or quail chicks, I can't remember. I think it's quail chicks. I usually find that quail chicks go, around here anyway, about $1 for however many weeks old they are. So $1 for a 1-week-old, $2 for a 2-week-old, $3 for a 3-week-old, $4 for a 4-week-old. All the way up till about 8 weeks old, and, well, all the way up till about 6 weeks old, honestly. You're going to have a hard time around here getting anything more than about $5 or $6 per bird out of them. But you're just going to have to look in your area, see what they're selling for, and that'll give you a better idea. Denver says, hey, Chris, crossbows are illegal here in Utah, but we usually do pretty good bow hunting for elk. I always have it in the freezer. Yep. Well, they've only been legal here for a couple of years. Just a couple of years ago when the Conservation Department made it legal to hunt with a crossbow. And for a while, I think it was only if you had like disability of some kind could you hunt with a crossbow. Now they've just opened it up and everybody can do it. Hey, Brian says Kansas City quail does have some native Southwest birds. So I've forgotten who it was that was looking for native birds in New Mexico, but you might check with them. They may be able to help you out. Walt says live chicks are too delicate to ship via mail, so if you can pick up live quail chicks, you need to have to, yeah, if you can't pick up live quail chicks, you need to you need to get eggs shipped to you. I agree. I don't think quail chicks ship very well at all. I would highly suggest, if you're going to have something shipped, you ship eggs or you drive and you pick up live birds. West Virginia Mountaineer says, how are you doing tonight, bud? Well, doing pretty good. Hopefully you are. And we got somebody from Bermuda. Who is that? Gray Dog from Bermuda. Says, I have 12 chickens and I'm looking to start quails. I have 8 by 8 foot shed where they roost and lay. Could the quails use the same space? Separate runs for each. Yeah, if you separate them out, I'm sure they could use the same space. They probably won't use your roosts though. Quail are ground dwelling birds. It's not to say that they won't get up there, but they just probably won't use them on a regular basis. All right. Oh, and I think I answered your next question. You said, do they roost like chickens? Not really, no. They tend to, in fact, they don't even really like go in a coop at night. Like, I have closed off sections and open sections. Half the time they just, like wherever they're at, whenever it gets dark, that's where they lay down and go to sleep for the night. It's kind of strange. Mark says, I'm going to give the purebred, yeah, you're talking about your purebred rabbit that won't lift. You're going to give her one more chance this weekend. I'm just lucky with the mixed New Zealand was so much nicer and a great mom so far. Every once in a while, you just get a hateful, aggressive rabbit for whatever reason. It just happens. All right, Tanya Kuzminko, I think it is. I want to raise quail for just eggs, but I want them to stay fertile just in case I want to hatch out their eggs for future quail. My question is, how long should I leave the rooster in with the hens? Mine stay in there all the time, and depending on how many roosters you have and how many hens you would, I would suggest that. You can separate them out from time to time. You could figure, I'd leave them in there maybe a week, and then you could take them out, and the hens should stay fertile for another week, maybe a little longer, probably up to 10 days, and then you can put them back in. But the problem you have is when you separate birds and then you start reintroducing them, especially during the breeding season, they tend to get aggressive with each other and really start fighting. So I find it best just to leave my rooster in there. You might give them, as long as you've got a decent ratio, don't go with like one rooster per hen. They're going to get overbred. But if you've got one rooster to 5, 6 hens, you're usually pretty good with that. All right. West Virginia Mountaineer says, hey, Chris, I moved out here in West Virginia about 20 years ago with my dad and mom from St. Joseph, Missouri. I know where that is. All my family still lives there, and just figured you might know where that is because it's not too far from you. It's a little ways from me, but no, I know exactly where St. Joseph is. I've been there many times. Steve says, armadillos can carry leprosy. Yep, they sure can. I think it's pretty rare for them to do it, but they can carry leprosy. Yep. Walt's saying the same thing I did. Leave the rooster in with the hen so there's no pecking order fights and reintroduction. Mark says, have you ever looked up in raising pigeons or squab? I have, actually. Or would you know a channel like yours that would have the info to start with raising pigeons, trying to find the right breeds? Yeah, I think if you're wanting to raise them for food, I'm not sure that, excuse me, I'm not sure that there's a great channel out there that does cover, I mean, there may be, I just don't know of it right offhand, that covers raising pigeons for food. Most of them I found are more like raising pigeons, like homing pigeons, like, messenger pigeons, and I think that would be kind of cool too. But my understanding is that pigeons tend to grow out pretty slow. I looked at thinking about raising them for food at one point, and if I remember right, they only have like 2 or 3 eggs at a time. They're not like quail where they lay consistently every day, and you can collect them up, and they tend to grow out pretty slow. So it takes like a couple of months for them to get up to butcher age. And look at that, I just got a $5 super chat from Jess B. Farm. Thank you so much. And I got to answer that question because it's a $5 question. Hey, Chris, do they let you keep bees in your city? Yes, they do let me keep bees in my city. I don't have any right now, but they are legal to have in my city. I'd have to look into the regulations to find out if there's like, you can't have them, like, you probably have to have them so many feet from your neighbor's house, or something like that. But they are legal. And honestly, what I find with pretty much all of the ordinances that regard animals, if you look them up, some of them are pretty strict. Like my city ordinance says that you have to have your rabbits in I can't remember, I want to say it's like 30 square foot per rabbit in cage space. And that's ridiculous. That's a huge amount of cage. They don't need that much room, but nobody's enforcing that. If you don't, as long as you're not a nuisance to your neighbors, nobody's complaining. It's not like the police are driving down the road looking for people that, oh, they've got a chicken in their backyard. They're not doing that. If somebody's complaining, hey, you got, your rooster's crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning and waking me up, and they call the city about it, then they'll come in and enforce that code on you. But other than that, they're pretty laxed about it around here. It's pretty nice the city I live in is pretty nice. But yeah, bees are legal. There's no regulation against bees here. All right. Talking about raising pigeons and squab. Yeah. I looked into it a little bit, just kind of decided against it, I think, for that reason right there. All right. Hannah Lee Lanning says New Zealand Reds quail chickens. I don't know what that means. Sorry, I'm not sure what that was in reference to. 3 Turns Then Home says, hey there, I got my baby bunnies. My doe had 10 for her first hatch. They will be a week old tomorrow. I said first hatch, didn't I? First batch. That's a pretty good size litter scope. Congratulations on that. And a week old, they should be, apparently they're doing well. Oberdare, I bet that's what it is. Oberdare says, what up, dude? No, everything's going good here. Hopefully it is for you too. The Bull's Garden and Rabbitry says, do quail eggs taste like chicken eggs? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they taste like eggs. There's a little bit higher yolk content in proportion to the white in a quail egg. So I kind of like that because I like the yolk the best, but now they just taste like an egg, just like anybody else. Somebody else threw me a $5 super chat. Look at that. Thank you so much. That's from Steve, and he says, partridges, oops, got to scroll down to get it. Partridges, ever think of raising them? I didn't know I could pay to cut the line. Nice. Yeah, well, you absolutely can. You don't have to. I try to get to every chat in here, and I don't ask anybody to donate money, but I do so much appreciate that. I have looked into partridges before, and even some, a couple of other different kinds of birds, but again, partridges, pheasants, those are all kind of in the same area for me. They're not as prolific of layers as quail are, and they take so much longer to grow out. It just doesn't make sense for me to raise them in the city in small cages. I think we need more space. It might be something if I lived out in the country, had the extra room, that I would do just because it's just kind of cool. I would do it just to do it, just because it's neat. But when I'm kind of limited with, I can't get away with too much. I say nobody really, enforces the laws or enforces the codes unless somebody complains. But a sure way to get somebody to complain if I start filling my backyard and surrounding my neighbors with all these wild birds that are screaming at different levels and all that kind of stuff all the time. So I got to be a little bit careful on that. But I've considered all that kind of stuff before. Just to me, quail are the absolute best for a city because they're just, they lay an egg a day. They grow out super fast, 8 weeks, and they're ready to butcher, or they're starting to lay more eggs. So just all in all, they seem like the best option for me. And thank you again for the super chat. I appreciate that. All right, my quail are, this is from Tracy, my quail are 2 weeks old and they still like to huddle by the heat light. Does that mean my house is too cold? It could mean that. 2 weeks old, though, they should be fully feathered out. And they'd probably do fine if you took the heat light out. But if they like to huddle up by it, it's probably just a little bit on the cool side. It's nothing to worry about. I wouldn't worry about it anyway. All right. Good evening to you, Jess B. Farm. Cluck and Bark Ranch says, can you hatch quail and chicken eggs together? Well, you can, but they take longer. Chicken eggs take longer to hatch than quail eggs do. So it might be a little tricky working out the timing just right. But yeah, it can be done. And Simdan says, is that possible? Quail can live with hen chicken. Yeah, I think I answered this already. It is possible, but it's really not your best option. It's not your best bet. Chickens can get pretty aggressive. Again, they want to eat everything that's smaller than them. They're like little dinosaurs, basically. But the bigger issue is that there's a lot of diseases that that chickens can carry that they can pass on to quail. It's really best to kind of keep them separated for the health reasons of the bird. All right. The Right Farm says to boost omega-3. There we go. I knew somebody would answer that. Couldn't you feed them sprouts or grass clippings? I think so. I don't know. You'd have to look into that and see. Jess B Farm says, did you start the new worm farm? I have not yet. I need to get that going. I got to get some worms, though. I don't have any worms right now, and there's nowhere around here locally that sells them. I can order them online and get them in. I just haven't done it yet. I'm going to have to do that pretty soon. SMK What's Nick says, good evening, all. Good evening to you. Mary says, how about alternative meds for animals and birds? What would you recommend on the lines of colloidal silver, there we go, kefir, etc., etc. I don't really get into all that. I don't get into all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying there's no benefit to that, especially when it comes to like fermented foods like your kefir and using whey from your yogurts and those kinds of things. There's a lot of probiotics in there that are really good for the digestive systems. I don't know so much about colloidal silver. I don't know that I really buy into that. I don't know. It just seems kind of like, and I don't mean to offend anybody. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. It's just, in my opinion, it just seems, I don't know, just kind of hyped up. It's like apple cider vinegar. People talk about how it heals all the apple cider vinegar doesn't. I don't believe it anyway. It's not magical. It's got probiotics. It's good for you, but it's not magical. It doesn't just cure things magically. So I don't know about. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving some of those kinds of things to your animals. It's probably not bad for them, but I don't know that it's really necessary. That's just what I think. All right, let me skip a few of these that we might have gotten through. Thanks from Mark. Good. Okay, there we go. Danny says, on day 10 of my first batch of quail eggs, your videos have been awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate that. SMK says, Mark, look into Texas Pioneers. Great squabbling breed. Hey, there you go. Somebody knew the answer to that. Steve says, Walt Lars, there we go. What type of puppy do you have? We have an Akita that is still growing. Don't know what. Oh, there it is. It's a Rottie Lab Cross. Pound puppy, huh? My dog came from the pound. He's great. He's nowhere near 90 pounds. He's like 65 pounds. Rhonda, I named my rabbit, but I'm not going to name the quail unless they are roosters because we're going to have way too many hens eventually. I'm sure the kids are going to name them regardless of what I think. Yeah, you're probably right. They probably will name them. I don't name any of my rabbits or quail. I don't mess with it. It's not that I'm against it. Name them if you want to, but I don't name them. When my son was younger, he's, my son, not my stepson now, but my son was young, and he still lived here, and he was younger. He named the rabbits. One of them was Fluffy. One of them was it Moo, I think it was, because it was a California, had the black spot. Oh, look at that. I got another $5 super chat from Steve. And he says, some people say D whatever, earth is magic. Oh, diatomaceous earth. Yeah. That's another one that gets pretty commonly thrown out there about using diatomaceous earth all the time. I mean, I'm not saying there's not uses for diatomaceous earth, but just to use it as a preventative, I really think is a bad idea. There's lots of possible health risks for your birds, especially respiratory issues that they can get from inhaling the dust from diatomaceous earth. You can too, so it's probably not good to have around. Not only that, but it's like a broad spectrum killer. It just kills everything. And there's lots of beneficial bugs around. You don't want to just kill everything. So I don't know. I don't really like diatomaceous earth, not in the way that it's usually preached anyway. I think there are times when you may want to use it to treat something, but it's kind of like worming your rabbits. I know people that like worm their rabbits regularly on a regular basis. I don't see any reason to do that. If they don't have worms, why worm them? If they get worms, treat them for worms and get rid of the worms. But there's no reason to give them worming stuff to prevent them from getting. It just doesn't make sense to me. But that's just me. Again, my rabbits are not on the ground, so getting worms is pretty low risk. All right. How are we doing on time here? Ooh, about 5 minutes left. I'm going to have to hurry and get through some of these, don't we? Do baby chicks have to have chick grit? No, quail don't need chick grit unless you're feeding them like some kind of wild feed, like they're foraging for their own feed or something like that. Then they might need some grit. But if you're feeding them like game bird starter, crumble, that kind of stuff, they don't need it. You don't need to worry about it at all. All right, Jose says, "Hey, are Dutch rabbits good meat rabbits?" Yep, Dutch rabbits are a good meat rabbit breed. My preferred is probably more like a New Zealand white or a California or a silver fox, but a Dutch, there's nothing wrong with those. I think they're considered a dual purpose. Actually, yeah, I think they are, but I think it's like pet or meat rabbit. They make a good meat rabbit. So if that's what you got and you can get them, it'd work just fine. Square One Farms is here and says, late to the party. That's okay. At least you made it. We appreciate it. The Bluesman Sasquatch Chaser says, hey, good people. Hey, Chris. Hello to you. Rhonda says, have you ever noticed they actually lay down quail? The kids get a kick. Oh, quail lay down. Yeah, they're notorious for look like just, and they don't just lay down. I mean, they look like they're dead. They just lay down flat and just lay there. And you go, oh no, the birds are, and then they pop up and start moving around. It's the weirdest thing. They love to do that. Square One Farm says, just started quail and hatched 78 of them today. Nice. Congratulations on your new birds. Ian says, do you need to deworm quail? I think I just answered that actually unintentionally. Not unless they have worms. I wouldn't worry about it. Mine have never gotten worms. It's never been an issue. I just don't worry about it. Yeah, well, yeah, 30 square feet is 5 by 6. Yeah, right. That's what they say you need for one rabbit. Hey, Square One Farm says, graduated from Carthage, Missouri. Haven't been there in 20 years. I know exactly where Carthage is. I mean, it's just right there. It's the county seat. It's not very far away at all. All right. Pigeons are 2 eggs at a time, 16 days to hatch, and 28 to 30 to eat. 28 to 30, that's pretty quick, actually. That's not what I remember. But hey, I may have to look at that again. But only 2 eggs at a time is a little bit, well, I guess if that's they're incubating themselves. I don't know. Will they continue to lay if you collect the eggs and they don't go broody, maybe? I don't know. Sparky says, pigeon squab, yuck. Utility King, too expensive. I don't know what Utility King is. But I don't know. I've never had pigeon, but I imagine it wouldn't be that much different than quail or dove. I mean, I think it would be very, very similar. Pigeons are basically just doves anyway. I don't see why it'd be any different. Dan says, I'm raising chukar, and they are a pain. I've heard that from some other people. I don't have experience, so I don't know. But Walt, yeah, good point. Partridges can come under the fish and game permits, too. SMK says, I prefer to show or fly pigeons than eat them. Yeah, well, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't do that. And I thought about getting into that for a little while, and then I realized I probably don't need another hobby. I've got too much going on. All right, Square One says, been watching your different quail coop builds. Any specific changes you would make with building those coops for indoor use? Well, for indoor use, I would say start with what you're going to use as a dropping pan and build your cages to fit that. It can be really tricky to find the right size dropping pan. I did some stacking cages. They were just basically like I make my rabbit cages basically, but more with like with a hardware cloth on the sides, and just used the rabbit cage wire to as like the front and the back to kind of make the frame to hold it all square and sturdy it up. And they worked pretty well. Just hung them on like a PVC rack and had a, dropping trains I slid underneath them. They worked pretty well. They did a great job. But, and that's probably what I'd go with if I was going to go inside. All right, where are we at here? Almost time to wrap this up tonight, guys. Steve says, chukar are not native to America. I don't know why Fish and Game would get involved. They are an invasive or introduced species. Guess they are permanent now, though. I don't know if chukar are regulated, but partridge, I believe, are, is what he was saying. But is that the same? I don't know. I may be confused on that one. Walt says, need ventilation for an indoor quail coop? Yep. To keep the dust down. Steve says you can name them dinner, lunch, and snack. Talking about naming your quail. That reminds me of a funny story. My grandmother had a turkey. Somebody gave it to her. And I was over there one day. This was years ago, but I was over there one day, and this turkey's walking around. And where did that come from? Oh, yeah, somebody gave him to me. It was their pet turkey. His name was Lunch. I could have sworn that's what she said. His name's Lunch. And I laughed about that. I said, oh, that's an appropriate name. Find out it was Lurch. It wasn't Lunch, but I thought Lunch was a much better name for him. Jimmy AC says, hi, everyone. Crackle Hatchery is having baby chicks, turkeys, ducks, special in Lebanon, Missouri. Lebanon's not too far. Steve says, whoa, we bought 10 acres in northern Idaho this past November. Wow. What are we doing here? All right, guys. I got to wrap this up. You can increase the laying of pigeons slightly, but not by much. Yeah, that was kind of what I thought too. But Dalton, one more question. I have a female male siblings rabbits. Would it be all right to breed them one time? No, don't do that. You can breed, you can breed daughters to fathers, sons to mothers. Don't breed siblings. Bad idea. Stay away from that. All right, I think I got to wrap this up. I'll get wrapped up in the comments, and I'll stay here all night long. But I got things to do, and got to get up and go to work one more day this week before the weekend hits. Thank you guys for so much for joining in here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the super chats tonight. Appreciate that too. God bless each and every one.